But then you have to ask everyone again after the recording starts so that their consent is all on recording. It's a two-phase commit. It's really
You're
complicated.
correct. Okay, so is everybody okay with recording? I am okay.
Does it say that it's recording?
It does, yeah, in the corner,
Yeah.
top left.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay
I'm
with
okay.
being recorded.
Okay, fabulous. So, look, land is where we grow our communities. It is where we grow our homes, our social establishments. And like I said, we may sometimes take it for granted, but it is, if you think about it, the most important tangible resource we've ever had. It is, in fact, arguably the most important tangible possession we can own or invest in. But as much as it is important, really, it is difficult for the vast majority of people to find, own, or invest in land. And that's due to the system that we have in place, which is not automated and extremely inefficient. And land itself is not digitized towards value transfer. It is not seamlessly integrated into financial markets. And you would know better than most people that land in a way is inaccessible to the many of us, or to the most of us, because it comes in big plots of land that is a little bit of a high price for an individual to invest in. And there doesn't exist a mechanism universally to allow crowds and different individuals to co-invest in the same plot of land. Therefore, land becomes illiquid and very difficult to monetize. At the same time, and most, maybe more even importantly, the second set of problem that we are dealing with is the fact that there isn't a digital asset that exists today around the world that is linked to a physical world real asset that has many characteristics. First, has to be universally identifiable, that is tangible with real asset intrinsic value, that is finite yet at the same time has a perpetual increase in demand as we grow our population, as we will need more land, and not or that asset doesn't need any tracking or storing or safeguarding, and it cannot be lost over a day or a year or 100 years. So humanity needs that digital asset. So our solution is to digitize small portions of land, and I'll get to that, and encrypt it, upload it on a blockchain powered protocol, create that marketplace, give people the opportunity to fractionally own and invest in the same land, and therefore bringing in more people, which therefore creates liquidity, unlocks monetization, be it debt or equity, and most importantly, create that digital asset that becomes important as a medium of exchange. So we're essentially right now working on the foundational technology, which will have various applications throughout different sectors in our life. It will impact and help farms and agricultures, to a certain extent, urban infrastructure, real estate development, and most certainly government-owned land that normally is not utilized or underutilized. What we try to accomplish, and the outcome that we hope for, is to bring in millions and billions of people and institutions from around the world, enable them to invest in land at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost that is currently in place. And by doing so, create together a digital asset that people can store their wealth in it securely and transfer safely and securely, that on a 24/7 basis, which is linked to a real tangible real physical asset that is indestructible, that is identifiable, that has value, and that value is going to continue growing. So we're solving two big problems at the same time, and certainly a little bit of a moonshot, but we're going to get there. So the opportunity.
Are you originally going after like what type of land have you started out with? Is it mainly government land that you're buying directly from them, or is it kind of a variety?
It's a variety, but the reason why we were focusing, or our immediate focus, is farm and government-owned land. that talk about the government is there is a little bit of a challenge when it comes to the first Genesis block that goes onto the blockchain, and that exists throughout the entire blockchain space. It's not only land.
Yeah.
It makes it easier for people and removes any doubt for individual retail investor and institutional investors as to whether they should doubt whether that land is in reality owned by the individual who claims that they own it. So when we go after land that is owned by government, and by the way, when land is owned by government, it is taken as a custodian on behalf of their people, and they should monetize it if they can, like a natural resource. But if we're going after the government land, it's because it makes it easier for people to trust that this is truly the land that is owned, because at the end of the day, it's the government through their entities, be the title agency or another agency, that will have to validate that this land is currently owned in the physical world by the government. So it makes it easier. And then since it's not monetized, it's sitting there doing nothing, earning nothing, waiting for hundreds of years to get any kind of monetization, we think that it could possibly be the low-hanging fruits. And that's why we're going after the government land.
Yeah. One of the reasons
Daniel,
sorry, go ahead, Tufi.
I was actually just making a comment. I thought that the farm land was a low-hanging fruit, especially the fruit farm. Okay. Anyway, it's a joke, Jackson. Please keep going.
No, but farms like as a focus at the beginning, definitely. I mean, when we are talking to people, be it we're doing a presentation or to whoever, it actually resonates faster for real estate developers what we're trying to do, because they understand the pain that they have to go through in raising financing and etc. And then they understand how this is going to work. But when it comes to the actual execution later, there's a little bit of more complication when it comes to urban places, and especially where there are buildings and infrastructure. Not saying that this will not be deployed. It will 100% be deployed there, but I think, and we may be wrong as we progress further into our milestones, we may find real estate developers in urban spaces more happy to start using our platform. But we believe that at the moment, to gain credibility in the easier, shortest direction, it'd probably be taking governments that are forward thinking, like the guys here in the UAE who have land and who would like to monetize it using a little bit of new technologies.
Yeah, because one of the difficult things, which I'm sure you'll get into, which kind of has to do more with the mechanics, is all of the legacy issues and dealing with insurance and all these back office paper-based systems. I've spoken to other people who have tried doing similar things, and a lot of them gave up because once they realized they started getting into the actual legals of it, it got very messy very quickly. So I don't know if you want to go into that a bit later or when you want to kind of talk about that, but I'd love to just understand how you guys are tackling that.
Yeah, sure. We will get into that a little bit later, and it's obviously part of some of our milestones that we will get to.
Okay.
So if I would like to continue the market opportunity, we're talking about more than $100 trillion worth of value around the world of land, and a fraction of that is transacted on an annual basis. We're going after that fraction, which is on its own a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. By comparison, throughout our history, we've mined $8 trillion worth of gold, whereas land that doesn't need mining nor storing is worth more than $100 trillion. So how it works, and this is extremely important that we differentiate ourselves from almost 99.9% of whoever is out there trying to create a digital asset or tokenize something. In order to tokenize something for real, to create a digital asset, you have to find a global standard that today everyone agrees on, that is identifiable and that has a universal consensus. And that's what we're going after, which is land. through its geospatial coordinates. You know, every place on Earth has today an identifiable numerical value, which is where the longitude and the latitude intersect. So we take that all the way to the square centimeter. It has a number. We give it a cryptographic representation, which is the 32 numerical value, upload it on our platform. So we give a tangible physical asset, an immutable relationship with a digital asset that can be tampered with. And therefore, that digital assets forever in the future becomes the truth, taken from an already existing standard. Unlike other potential tokenization of steel or food or whatever they're trying to tokenize, great, they're paving the way for my success because they're doing a lot of legwork, but they're still relying on IoTs and institutions and people and governments and different companies throughout the entire system to trace the actual asset, monitor it, make sure it's there all the time, make sure it's not double spent, not double sold. We have the solution. We're working on Land.
This is extremely important, Jackson. Just want to make sure that you're familiar with the actual geospatial location, like the coordinates. They are actually global in every single nation.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that existed about 480 years before electricity, that we've all came to consensus on them the same way. There are only a few things on this planet that we came to agree on them. Metric system, for example, is not one of them. You know, you have like different ways of measuring
Distance.
Distance and temperature and so on and so forth. But when it comes to time, we all use the same time. And when it comes to the geospatial, we all use the same one. So that's the most important aspect here, because when you get to the 7 decimal point, you get to the square centimeter. And if you do get to the square centimeter, the value of that square centimeter, if it's 0.01 cent or whatnot, it's too small for any system to manage. Any system that is going to manage a small amount like this, the actual cost of managing it is likely to be higher than it. And therefore, the marriage of that element along with a system that is extremely efficient can give birth to something that could never exist before this moment. And this is extremely important.
No, that is important. Yeah.
Right. So if we were to say, it's like, well, how come nobody figured that out 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 3 years ago? There was no Torah system that can make it that efficient to transact that small piece in a fully decentralized setting that it's borderless and so on and so forth. Of course, somebody can have a central database and say, like, trust me, but there's that still trust me. But when it comes to coordinates that existed before electricity that we all agree to, there is no more that trust me. Once it's inserted in the system, there's only single point of failure here, which you've alluded to, and Daniel's alluded to, and he's going to talk about how this is going to be solved. It's how you insert that land in. Is it the government or is it a farm or whatnot? That's the only point of failure, and everything else, it becomes like fully decentralized, and meaning that fully secure. So I'll let Daniel proceed.
And I think I'd like to elaborate a little bit on this one, because as much as that is important on the digital space, once it is there, which Tufi just talked about, which we're solving, we're also solving the physical world. So we're not tokenizing anything that needs traceability, that moves every day, that can disappear overnight or over a year or over 100 years. We're talking about the most important natural resource. We cannot live without it. We can live without gold. We can live without fiat. We can live without currency. We can live without so many other things but land. And therefore, it's indestructible. It's not going to change. So you create that immutable link and you have the best of everything to create this digital asset.
I think the timing now is perfect to what you just said, Daniel. Between the market collapse and the corona, we can live without any one of those.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we will get to do the demo. I'll explain how it works. Business model that we're thinking about now that we can share with people who would like to know how. I mean, obviously, we will change throughout. It's easy. We will create licensing fees for enterprises that already work in the industry. So a lot of people already in the marketplace of land, being real estate agents, developers, investors, government, they can use our license, our software in a license. We have a success fee model. We'll charge a very small amount for transaction, especially on the secondary market. That's how we make more money in the future. And as we have millions of lands transacted on our platform, they obviously need to have additional services catered to the owners and the investors. Those services we may know of sometimes today, for example, campaign, advertising, or verification of land, but we will create some utility or some reason of existence of additional service in the future that we can't think about today, just by creating the platform. And that will be additional source of income, be it us who do it or a third-party company that plugs in. That third-party company can be different companies around the world that are best at what they do. So right now we're focusing on 3 geographical areas. One of them is UAE. I'm here. There's a country in Africa and few in Asia. But our focus is to find like-minded individuals anywhere around the world who would join venture with us on some basis, be it 50-50 or whichever the case may be. We will provide them all the know-how, all the technology, and then we will have them join us to essentially do the groundwork where they are in their territory, in their country, or whichever area that they take. And that's how we try to scale faster than we would if we wanted to do everything by ourselves. So I hope
this is the point. I just want to make sure that you're elaborating on that point. That's the point that we've talked about during launch, Jackson, that what Daniel is doing is moving, the needle not necessarily all the way from point A to point Z. So, so let's say, between Torah and Daniel, we moved it A, B, C, D, E. And then he's moving it from like, 4 points, let's say, to J. And then from that point, there's some CEO in each and every nation, they're moving it further. Some of them, they want to move it all the way to Z. Some of them, they just want to move it like 1 inch. But the most important aspect that they need to figure out, like in every startup, there's one single big if statement. Their big if is that if they figure out the legalese. If, for example, the guy in Georgia is figuring out the legalese a little bit differently than the folks in Thailand. They're both extremely very well connected to the government there, but completely different equation of how they're figuring it out. Now, of course, in the United States and Canada and in Europe would be also different, but it's there's some way that can be repeated here, that when you figure it out in places that they don't have any foundation, and then they look at how others did it, then they will likely copy. So there's an inflection point here, and I'm not saying that we're there yet, but when that inflection point hits is that when somebody figured it out in a single nation, let's say in Africa, that worked really well, and there's like, let's say 20 other nations going to follow. That would be an inflection point. Please proceed, Daniel.
So this is essentially what I felt that I would take the opportunity to give you a little bit of, what are we trying to accomplish in our big vision and mission, and before we get into details of anything, or before I show you the demo and how it works. We can move on right now to the demo. I'm going to show you how we can upload a land and transact it, if you like, or if you have any.
Yes, please.
So, can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
We can see your full screen, and now I'm not 100% sure. You're my brother. I don't see any porn.
I just closed it. I just closed it before we started. Remember, we're recording.
No, this is Dan right now. This is what Dan's doing. Dan's like, oh my God. Tufi has to say something inappropriate.
Dan is moving
Anyway.
his head like this.
Yep.
All right, so it's pretty simple. The user will sign in, very seamless. They will get a notification on email, and then they can immediately sign into their profile. They don't have any lands or history yet, but then they can go to the land marketplace and view all the available lands that are out there for investments. Could be anywhere.
So could someone theoretically be selling a square centimeter of land on this? Okay.
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, the idea of the square centimeter is to take a plot
Even
of
practically.
Practically, sorry. I mean, you know, like I meant theoretically because nobody's done any of this transactions yet on that level.
You can bring it to practically, like, yeah.
So the idea is that is existed throughout. I mean, we've had tokenization for a long time now. It wasn't necessarily on the blockchain, but many assets have been tokenized. Like you can say share in a company and stock, or gold that potentially sits somewhere in a safe under a bank. That is already, I mean, you know, split into too many fractional investment or ownership style. So the reason why we do this is to take an immovable asset that is indestructible, but give it a little bit of fungibility, so that the same plot of land can become made off of thousands and hundreds of thousands of different tokens or different asset that can then become essentially transacted. So you can invest in it the same way anybody today invests in gold. You know, many people will buy some gold. They don't actually get the gold itself. The gold sits somewhere, and you have to trust that bank that they actually have the gold, and you have to trust them that they didn't sell it 3 or 4 times. Here, we're talking about land, and that cannot be sold twice, and doesn't need mining. It doesn't need storage, so reducing incredible amount of cost, creating efficiencies. And it's tangible. People can relate to it. It's land. It's important, and they can see it. And you know what? If they want to, they can even go and touch it. So here, people can find different lands that have been uploaded by other users that are ready for investments. And as an example, you click on this, you see the details of it. And if you click on one of them, it will be able, the system gives you a square meter view of that land. And you can see here green dots and red dots. The red dots, they illustrate the centimeters that I own on this part of land, and the green are available. The other ones, probably not. Very easy right now the way we've done it, to create, to upload a land. So, and if you have an area in mind, we can totally do it. But I'm gonna take an example that we have here. Let's call it Jabal. Let's call it Jabal Ali.
Why don't you take something in Canada? Because Jackson would like to know it.
As long as you guide me into let's call it farmland, and North America. And you describe the project. Obviously, it's a full description. you can put all the information, whether it came from your architect, your interior designer, your consultant, in terms of the projections, the feasibility, whatever you want to do to essentially create a very successful campaign so people can invest in your land as much as you would like them to. So let's say organic farm, and organic farm, and then the total value that you wish to raise, let's say it's $15 million, and you are yourself keeping 10%, 1.5 million as an example, so people can trust that you have skin in the game. Are you offering an annual yield? Is it interest? Are you going to have a buyback guarantee, or is it a total pari passu? Let's say you already have credibility and people know about you are a great farm manager, you own so many others, you have a name. People just want to invest with you because you've already proven yourself. So whatever you get, they get percentage of it.
You'd still want to make sure whatever you're buying, like there hasn't been damage, for example, done to that property, right?
100%. So, and that's why we're saying there will eventually be requirement for additional services that will verify, vet, and all of that.
Okay.
But initially, which is why I go back to, for example, farms and government-owned land. You get credibility by taking things like, also developers, by the way, real estate developers. Like here, I'm talking to big names in real estate developers. So if you join and piggyback on their credibility, then you gain more credibility. And let's say here, are we going to Ontario?
Sure.
All right. So here we're gonna go to next to Sudbury.
Sure.
All right. So there's a farmland right here on this street next to 15. And
well, they have Corona in Sudbury apparently, so be careful.
So you
Do they really?
Yeah, yesterday was in the news.
Oy.
So the way it is, you just click the coordinates to choose the land that based on your land where it is, assuming that's correct, and you continue doing.
Daniel, did you build that land before, or is it the first time you go in there?
Sorry?
Did you actually insert that land before, or is this the first time you're doing it?
This specific one. No, I'm just doing it right now.
Oh, okay. So then why don't you ask Jackson to give you some location?
No, it's fine. No, this is fine. I'll get the same picture. But if somebody already staked that land, if you were to go there, would it show that it's like somebody's already purchased, or like that you don't own it, or that it's already staked or taken?
Right. Yeah. It's basically. That gets into the double spend, and there is no way anyone can actually ever double spend on
right.
The once it's inserted into the TODA, it's impossible to ever double spend. TODA has a digital structure. The actual the data structure cannot theoretically or practically have the capability of having a single unique number repeated. It just is, there is no reality like that. It just has to, yeah. Anyway, so what's happening now, Daniel?
So now it's being essentially, we took that land. So what's happening in the back end, it's being gridded using geospatial coordinates by the square centimeter, and the essentially prescribing or giving every square centimeter a cryptographic representation, uploading it. Takes some time to get uploaded. Now it's uploaded. And as soon as it is, now it's on the blockchain. So let's assume it was validated. Let's assume that using the mechanism that we're building, or someone else came up with, or we are syncing with the title agency in place. There's various ways to do it. Now it becomes the truth forever. And when other people sign in, they can now see it right here. And let's say you sign in right now, you will be able to see it. And then you can choose to buy some. And obviously I have a lot of money, so I'm going to buy 500,000.
Would you buy using fiat money, like any currency?
Any currency anywhere around the world would actually work.
And what do you get, like for each piece of land or for each purchase? Do you get like one token?
You get the beneficial ownership of that $500,000 in proportion
Yeah.
to what it is, and you get those. Each one is represented as one file in your phone or whichever using laptop. It will be in your wallet. And now what we do with it later, transact it, have it on a secondary market, link it to existing payment systems. That's where Toda comes in and brings us to their platform where we can easily plug into other things that they're successfully doing. That will essentially help us as well.
And you could turn around and
79 million files, as you can see there, I think. 79,612,000.
Yeah, so that was successfully uploaded, and now it says how many square centimeters there are and the price per square centimeters. And then, I just bought the 500,000 of it, so you can see that investment remaining is 500,000 less.
Each and every one of those files will be like a unique Torah file for life, but inside the file is the element that hasn't been figured out yet, which is is it going to be promissory note, or is it going to be buyback note? Is it going to be whatever it is? That's the legality comes in that specific file, because it's so certainly you don't want to make it like the old ownership where every time somebody's transferring it, they have to like as if they're transferring the ownership. That's certainly not going to be the case.
So essentially, it's not creating a title deed for every square centimeter, because that will in the existing system is not going to work. But the beauty of a digital asset is you can embed anything you want in that digital asset. So whether it's compliance with regulation, tax, buybacks, yields, whichever the case may be, is embedded. It actually, the reason why we're doing this is just to improve solving problems that may currently exist and will in the future exist by facilitating its the solutions in a much expeditious way, because everything is digital right now. Yeah, it won't be necessarily like a title changing hands and there's a paper and there's your name on it. It's that digital asset that gets, which is immutably linked to that square centimeter in the land.
But if it's not a title changing hand, like will people still recognize it as a almost transfer of ownership?
It could potentially be under different jurisdictions, and that's where governments have to step in and say, is there going to be a tax on every transfer, or are we going to open that so that we can have more liquidity and we want more people to invest and transfer? Maybe we can lower the tax dramatically for every transfer of that, and we will eventually make more money on the tax system. We're collecting it on a daily basis as it happens, but we want to allow people to trade those pieces of land more frequently, and we're not going to charge the same 5% on an every time. It could be that only the plots of land, the existing plots of land, whenever it actually changes hand on the physical world, there will be a tax, and those are a derivative of that land. So, the same way it works today in many other assets where, every time you're purchasing something on the stock or a derivative, you're not necessarily making the entire change. If you are on a REIT and then you're changing your stock ownership in the REIT, there's not going to be a transfer of actual ownership of the title, because the way I'm sure you know a little bit about REIT.
Right, but there's got to be at some point a transfer from the legacy to your system, whether it's somebody who wants to sell a piece of land to begin with, right? Like they need to basically show that they own that piece of land in the first place outside of the Toady ecosystem.
100%. 100%. So we're thinking about mechanisms to do that that does not penalize people and doesn't stop them from using our system. Obviously, we want to encourage, but so we're thinking about mechanism to incentivize the people who actually own the land once they've proven that they've owned it, and create a way where we incentivize people who would just like to point out who are the people who are trying to cheat the system. There's many ways to think about it depending on how much funding we have, etc. There's a way to just link to the existing title agency at the moment until such time where our platform becomes the truth and they don't need to exist anymore. And again, it depends on where we are in the world. In Dubai, for example, titles are all digitized already. So we can find a mechanism to essentially create that as secure as possible. In other places, they don't even have title agencies, so we may be the first system that they can work on. But surely there needs to be that verification along the way to become that Genesis block. Once it is verified, then it becomes the truth forever, but it has to be verified.
Right. So what stage would you say then you guys are at? Like, is it the proof of concept? What's kind of the stage you're at, and what's the next stage?
Yeah, 100%. We're at the proof of concept stage, very early stage. We started a little bit earlier, but we slow walked it for various reasons. One being where all the legal matters are around the world, and we see through my discussion with people and my readings and everything that it's certainly moving in the right direction to where our platform will play an important role. Right now, we have that proof of concept that can prove that we can take that immovable asset that is identified by the geospatial coordinates, digitize it, encrypt it, upload it, and make it available for a P2P transfer at extremely almost close to zero cost. This is what we have done in the last few months to prove that, and that can be done anywhere around the world. So our next step is to find like I said, people who would like to join us as a CO in their territory to work on the legal matters in their countries to figure out that verification process. How is it going to be? That's going to be, some of our next milestones. But right now we're focusing on actually getting a POC in the real world. So we want to have a land, whether it's a farm or whether it's a government land, that allows us the opportunity to prove that it works and people can invest land better than they can invest in any other assets like gold or anything else.
Jackson has some lands. Sheldon.
Yeah, Sheldon, our family has like about 2,000 acres just outside Toronto. It's actually part of the Greater Toronto area, just in a place called Durham Region, which I know he's expressed interest in before. So I mean, yeah, it could be something that he'd be interested in. I know. Definitely would talk to him about it. But I mean, so how would that look like? Let's say we decided to do this for one of the farms that we own. Is it kind of going through that same process you just showed me, where you basically highlight the land, we have to verify that we have the ownership, and then it's pretty much in the back end where it kind of digitizes it and tokenizes it?
Yeah, pretty much that. I mean, in order to do that, we're gonna have to, since it's in Canada, it will then behoove me to expedite finding somebody in Canada who will take the CEO role, because their role would be to find what are the right structures for that from a legal point of view, whether it is for ownership or investment in land, or whether it's from a crowdfunding point of view. And from a real estate law point of view. Now, there's a lot of POCs happening around the world. Some countries are already trying to make that work. Some countries are advanced, some countries are not. It would be amazing for Ontario to kind of start being on the forefront. Some people in the regulators are interested in making this happen because they understand the benefit to their societies and to the rest of the world. Some of them are reluctant. So
it's a lot easier than any existing asset that Jackson, even existing stock. I mean, for regulators, it's a no-brainer. It's a lot easier than anything that ever existed before.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Well, a lot easier in a way. You still have to deal with the fact that there is real estate regulations, there's ownership law, there's title transfers, and there's securities, and there's crowdfunding. So all of these regulations, they need to be looked at. But luckily, we've had many companies in the past have done a lot of the legwork for what we are doing, and we don't have to be sandboxed anymore. People have already proven that it can be done, and regulations is improving on that. So I think this year of 20 to 30 is definitely the right time for us to push the pedal as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. And so, okay, yeah. So how, and you have the financial runway for the next little while, or like how are you doing on the financing side?
We're good. I want to close my pre-seed because like I said, we slow walk this. Right now, I am full speed setting up another office here in Dubai.
Everything that you see, by the way, Jackson, everything that you've seen so far has been done with precisely $125,000. And if you show me any company in the world that's done this much progress with $125,000, I'd invest.
That's very impressive. It sounds like it's like very, very slim team, very efficient. How long have you guys been technically in operations for?
A year and a half, I guess. What's the date?
A year and a half. I mean, we formed the company earlier, but to really say technically in operations, I would date it until like probably less than a year. That's when we really started thinking about the various things.
Right, like maybe 9 months when you got that to Thailand folks.
Yeah,
maybe would say yeah.
So the way I see it is, and Tufi was joking, but there's reality, there's truth to it. People more and more are starting to realize, and look, we may get, I hope not, but we may get a big recession. I mean, it's due to happen. It's bound to happen. And, people have been kicking the can since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, whether it's triggered now by the virus or whether it actually eventually explodes, but people, the general public, and people who have so far been benefiting from the system, I'm seeing that both of them are starting to realize that there's a need for a little bit of a better digital asset that has no dependency on people, countries, or governments or institutions. And at the same time, I understand and I know from real estate developers and governments that own vast majorities of land cannot monetize it. So it's only gonna get better for us because people are starting to realize that, and land is real money, especially land that is digitized in the way we're digitizing it towards value transfer. It is something that is tangible, indestructible, valuable. As we make more babies, as we're gonna need more land, and if you apply the law of economics, there's more demand for a valuable asset, and we're not making it anymore. It's just gonna only increase in value over the long term.
Let's not make more babies, by the way, please.
Well,
okay.
Try to tell that to 3 billion horny people. So,
Right.
so yeah, it's exciting time for me. I'm very, very extremely excited now. We're gonna weather the storm that we are all in with, which is with that coronavirus, whatever. But yeah, we have the runway. From my point of view, I have income from other sources, and I'm dedicated for this now, and I will make it happen. I do want to close my pre-seed, raise a couple of $100,000 extra dollars, which will happen soon. And then I want to move very fast into my seed round, because we're going to have to push the gas very fast, and I need to have the resources to do that. So that POCs will cost money, finding the right people and partnerships around the world will cost us some money. So this year, I think it's going to happen by close my pre-seed and seed and move on 2021 for my round A.
Mm-hmm. And what's the valuation at the pre-seed level, pre-money?
What we closed before was at 2 million val cap with a 25% discount. Right now,
Yeah, we came in at 2 million, Jackson, and you guys came in at 2 million, but right now he's at 4.
right now.
Okay.
I have just recently opened a new office as a branch here in Free Zone. Next year or middle of this year, I'm going to open another one in Dubai International Financial Center, which will help me from a regulation point of view, etc. It has the better facilities. And from here, it's, being where we are with Dubai being extremely connected, it will be easy for us to take on the entire, region, Africa and Asia and this part of the world. And the regulations from a regulations point of view, I certainly see them that are getting into our favor. They're moving. They're sometimes move slow, but if you know anything about this place, things may happen overnight. If someone which we have access to make a decision and they like the idea, they can just make a decree and it can happen overnight. And they love the fact they want to be in the forefront of revolutionary technologies and ideas that are gonna make them look better around the world. They are risk takers and they don't mind doing this. So I have good hopes for this part of the world. I have also high hopes for Africa. I mean, there's vast amount of land over there, and there can be different applications over there, be it for farms or protecting forests, etc. And certainly Asia is huge as well.
No, 100%. I think you're hitting all the right areas. It sounds like you've done an incredible amount of work with very little money, so that's exceptional. Just kind of to finish off, just to see how I mean, first of all, it'd be great just to get updates as you guys proceed, as you hit certain milestones, whether it's going out and doing the first piece of land in the real world or whatever. Just love to get just kind of be in the loop on that. And then just the other thing is love to know what would be best for how we could help you. I don't know if it's we like Tufi said, we have some land. We also have a large network and know a lot of people. So if there's certain people that you'd like to help get to or help us bridge that relationship with, we're good at that as well. What are you kind of looking for most right now?
Well, I mean, can I choose all the above? I mean, I can't refuse your generous help. Would love that, especially coming from you. I mean, by default, I have high respect for you because you guys are connected to Tufi and Dan, and certainly it would be fabulous if we can find a way for a win-win-win situation for you, for us, and for the city or the province or the federal to actually get a POC there. A farm is great, is a great example. Together we can, if we can do that, so connect us to the right people who would make the farmland also happen, that would be fabulous.
What is that mainly regulators that would be involved in that process to make that happen?
Yeah, regulators.
I think
a big role. Dan,
yeah. I think initially, if he gets some sort of land with some LOI or something, it would help him get the CEO or for Canada or president for Canada Land32 or something like that, because that individual will be coming in to figure out all the details on the ground, and that's basically the big if for that individual. Imagine that individual figures out the legalities in Canada. Like what would happen next? I mean, Canada is the largest country in the world in the amount of land that is has this certain credibility, You have Switzerland has very good credibility, Canada has very good credibility, you know, and neutrality and so on and so forth. Like that just figuring out that how powerful that is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I know for our farm area, I mean, we recently met with the regional chair of the area where our farm's at, and they're actually looking for what could really be innovative to help them help the area grow, because it's kind of, you know, a lot of people have started going west in terms of growing, but there's not really much to do, and so the Toronto needs to expand, and really the only way to go is east, and that's where our farms are, and but the areas are all kind of like dying around. All the people, you know, the infrastructure is not there, and the capital is not there, and so they're looking for different alternatives. So, I mean, it is a one group that, you know, we probably could get pretty easy access to. But anyways, let me speak to Sheldon, follow up with him, give him all this information, and just, you know, going forward, let's for sure keep in touch, and hopefully you can update us on any, you know, new information that comes out on your end.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, just want to point out something you said, which is I missed saying it here, but it's inferred. You actually explained what eventually will be our, you know, when we create that marketplace, in addition to the technology itself that can be deployed on its own, you're giving a license, etc., to a real estate developer. But once we create that marketplace, not only are people able to just buy and trade land, but it's a place where people can find each other. You know, there's no more opacity in terms of finding the price of land. And if a farmer requires funds, they can say it. But also, if somebody owns land that they don't know how to manage, they can also find the land managers. But all of that also gives us opportunities for additional revenue stream to the marketplace. So it's a win-win-win situation for everyone.
Right. 100%. So yeah, that I don't have anything else. But thanks so much for taking the time to have the call with me.
I want to point something here, guys, that Daniel mentioned. Just I know it's probably closing towards the end of the hour here. So, you know, with the current world that we live in, whenever there's like an asset like gold requires like mining, and then with Bitcoin requires mining, and then there's like the miners from left, miners from right, and it's just like that's what's required to actually get this asset to be available for people to trust that it's there. And what Daniel alluded to, the entire gold combined is $8 trillion. The land in the world today is over $100 trillion. And when I tell that to folks, that it doesn't require mining, and you can go and touch it, right? You can even go and put your finger on that square centimeter anywhere it is when you're owning it. And then folks, sometimes they say to me, like I was talking to some of the gold miners, and they say, well, you can go to the actual mining facility. You can actually literally go and touch the miners. And I'm like, do you really want to live in a world where to validate your asset, you have to go and touch a miner?
Right.
you get the joke.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, but it's
okay.
though I know you were joking, which is amazing how you put it, but it is a very valid point. It doesn't need mining, but also for the life of it, not only for mining, for the life of it, is unstealable. It's indestructible, right, and doesn't need any protection. And there, you know, gold is being protected, but all of this costs users, all of that costs society money, because someone has to pay for the mining, and then someone has to pay for safeguarding it. Land doesn't. The only money that it needs is to improve it, whether to make more trees, more oxygen, or whether to create universities or homes. So yeah, it's I have a passion for land, but equally I have a passion for efficiencies, and I'm bringing them together. And with the help of my brother Dan and the guys from Toda, we are going to change how people transact land, and definitely bring that superior digital asset with your help as well. So I welcome any help, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I think land's a great area to go after for all the reasons that you mentioned.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks guys.
Take care, guys.
All right,
Bye.
take care.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.